Thank you so much. Thanks for this invitation and the chance to come back to Switzerland. I went to Switzerland many years ago. I went skiing there, which was fabulous and so lovely to be with you all. And yes, as you were reading a little introduction, I was thinking that that trip was the biggest reinvention, or I would say rebirth, that I went through myself. And this topic of reinventing the self is very dear to me because I think it's a continuous process. And I feel that this time that we have journeyed together, these last 2 years in which we were given, like we were put into a stop. We never thought that the world could come to a stop. And in a way, the pandemic charged its high price, but the shutdown offered also an opportunity to be with the self, an opportunity to know ourselves. So this is such it's quite an amazing time that we are transiting together. And I think that it provided us the chance to have a good look into the self and to be able to become aware of what is, where am I at on this amazing journey of life? Am I going in the direction I want to go? Am I going anywhere in the first place? I may not be moving too much, but if I am, in what direction and at what speed? So from any perspective, it's been very, very enriching and empowering to be able to become aware of the self and the things that I would like to change. And I can personally tell you that in this time of pandemia, I went through different phases. Like at times at the beginning, I think it was very exciting to realize that we were all isolated, but on the other hand, we became super connected. So we made the world so small, and suddenly we had so much company, so much to learn, so much going on. I mean, just amazing. I think people use their time in so many different ways to find new things to do, things that maybe had been, a promise for a long time, and there was the chance to do it. But then I think that as time moved on, it also gave us the chance to see what was not working for me. And so I can tell you, I went through a roller coaster of all sorts of moments of exactly reinventing the self and realizing that many things that had worked for me in the past were no longer working. They were no longer motivating. They weren't. So I realized that I was getting stuck in different things. So I think that reinvention starts when we become aware of how uncomfortable it is to sit in a comfort zone or to be stuck in old ideas, in old feelings, old ways of relating to people, old ways of doing things. And so slowly, what comes into place is that I find that my motivation is running down. So when we feel that there isn't a flow of interest and enthusiasm and learning and growing, then I become stagnant somehow. And maybe I'm not doing the wrong thing. It's just that I'm not doing anything that is meaningful to me now in the present. And it might have been relevant and important and, interesting in the past and worked for me, but it's not anymore. And so everything that we start or everything that we create will go through a process in which it's as if everything new will become old at some point. So we have new ideas, so something is being born, and then these ideas grow, and then they mature, and then somehow at some point we keep doing the same things, but the energy starts declining. And so at that point, we might be a little anxious. We might become a little afraid that, where am I going to end up? What's going to happen? Things are not working anymore. And so we probably go into some form of internal crisis. But that is exactly like the cocoon that is going to give place to something new. So when we go into a crisis, we somehow face some kind of emotional chaos, some kind of mental disturbance of some sort that makes us restless, or things are not working in our relationships. We're not being productive at work. Maybe my health is breaking too. So we kind of go into a kind of a mess. And so this is the point sometimes in which I need to sit back. I need to think deeply, what is going on? And this requires like deep observation. It's like silent introspection. And this is where, if you have a practice of meditation or some kind of contemplation will help, because this is where I can kind of pause for a moment and become an observer that says, what is going on within. And I think that this time that we have had has in a way exposed us to this kind of observation in which we have to, in a way, face the self. And reinvention is about taking new risks and taking new decisions and also letting go. But I need to become very aware of where it is that I'm standing, because that's going to be my starting point. And I can only then see in what direction I will go when I'm clear not only where I'm standing, but what it is that I want. And so when I ask myself these questions, I need time and I need space. I mean, inner space. Of course, if you can go to a nice place, you want to sit in a park, that's also very good. But it's inner space, which means I need to, declutter my mind so that I'm able to observe. And an observation might take, a few days for me to gain some clarity. And it's the time it takes for me to cool down and not worry, because by the time we take the responsibility of going within and asking myself, what is going on? What is it that I want? Then what is it that I need? And then to further be able to take, steps in that direction, it may be that I need to see things very deeply and really become aware that it is not working for me. Otherwise, we kind of patch it all up and we keep going, pretending that I'm okay, but really this is, how we get tempted to sit back in a comfort zone. And then I lose the flow again. So we have to be a little bit patient, because ego plays some tricks on us and sometimes makes us believe that things are fine, although they are not. When I was on that trip that you were mentioning as my introduction, I was 24. I was very fascinated with traveling around the world, but I reached a point in which I had so many questions. I was so tormented. I wanted to know, what is life all about? I wanted to understand what is happiness. I wanted to understand what is true love. And sometimes when we go out on a trip, we think that things are much better, outside at least of your country. Argentinians think, everything's much better in Europe. So they flock to Spain or to Italy to make a better life there. And so we tend to think that things are better there. But as I traveled, I realized that there's nowhere anything is better, because everything is really happening in the mind. And I came to a point, I was doing a camel trek by the desert near Pakistan in the northwest of India. And my mind was in such a mess. I realized I had to stop. I didn't know anything about the Brahma Kumaris those days. I was just a seeker, a traveler. But and during my trip, I kept kind of telling myself, oh, traveling is real fun. And then kept meeting all these wonderful seekers and travelers on the road. So I was entertained, but I was not happy. And that was a very interesting distinction that I discovered, that one thing is to be entertained and excited about things happening, but quite different from being happy. And I looked at people's eyes and I kept telling myself, we're all excited, but we're not really happy. And so it took me, when we returned from the desert in a city called Jodhpur, I thought I have to stop. Traveling is not making it for me anymore. So it became so uncomfortable to be so unhappy. So I asked someone, where in India, actually I was in a very cheap hotel in front of a railway station. And I looked out of the window and I saw a man on the street. And I said, I'm going to ask him where in India I can rest my mind. And so when I walked down, and I told myself, whatever he says, I'll do it. He could have sent me to the moon, but luckily he sent me to Mount Abu. And so he said, you want to rest your mind? And I said, yes. So he said, then go to Mount Abu. And this is when I look back, I think it was like a divine intervention, because I did buy a ticket to Mount Abu. And there, after a week, I met the Brahma Kumaris in a temple. They were all visiting this temple, and I saw their happy faces. And I thought, wow, these people are happy. And so I asked them, what do you do? They said, well, we are young people from the world, all over the world, and we do meditation. And I thought, well, that I'm sure is going to help me. So that all took me to a stop. And there's where I did my first, this is where I came to know about the Brahma Kumaris, the BKs, as we call ourselves, and their practice of meditation. And this is where I gave my first steps of this going within and looking at myself. And although I was on a 2-year trip, and I used to call myself an adventurer, then I realized that the greatest adventure ever would be to know myself. And this is what I was being taught, to know myself, to look within myself and realize that I am this living energy that is being expressed through this body, but it's distinct from the physical. It's the being. And all my disturbance was happening at the level of the being, but I became aware of the power of thought, and thought power as the seed of creation of my own reality. So becoming aware, when we look within and we tap into this power of the mind, we're not the mind, we have a mind, but becoming aware that everything happening in my mind is really up to me. And so in this starting point of going within, to realize that I have the power to change. And at that point, I was exposed to the idea that I didn't know myself, that I needed to know myself. I didn't realize at that point that I was going to be reborn, I would say, or reinvented, as you like, but becoming aware of the power of creation that we have opened the door to something completely new, to something completely different. And reinventing the self has this starting point to become aware that it will all depend on me, and it's my choice. And so I was in this crisis. I started my journey on this curve that I was so excited, such fun, and then traveling didn't make it for me anymore. So I was in this crisis, in this chaos, and from there, a new curve, a curve that allowed such newness in my life to realize that I was a free bird and that I could make a choice. But this time it would be a conscious choice. And so reinvention could have happened in your life, my life, and everyone's at the level of work. We start new relationships, we start new jobs, we can move places. But this reinventing was at a different level. It was at the level of identity. It was really bringing me into a whole new understanding of who it is that I truly am. And this is what connects us with the highest possibility. Because when we think of, reinventing ourselves in terms of work, let's say, and it's great if you want to change your job and you have opportunity, new opportunities, that's wonderful. But it doesn't mean that a new job will necessarily make me happy. It might, create better quality living. It might be more comfortable or more, it might be better. But I think that the level of reinvention that we as a human family are going through right now, and that this lockdown has helped us in a way to bring us close to that point in which we are ready to make deep changes within. So what awakens when we want to make this choice is that we become actually reflective. And so no superficial change will make it. If our aim is a spiritual aim, if our aim has to do with, how much I know myself, how much I appreciate harmony, for example, in my relationships, then it's not just any change that will make it happen. It means something that has to change within me. And that will open a door to self-transformation. So it starts with self-awareness, and it will take me, because when we look within, we will become aware of our true essence. And although I was very peaceless when I was traveling, I realized when I started practicing meditation that I had this power to be very cool and peaceful. And so as I was taking some classes and that were teaching me how to know myself, and by thinking and observing that and experimenting with that, I realized that was true, that we are essentially peaceful beings, although we may be in a mess in any other way, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in my work or the way I think of myself. But so when I become the observer, I'm able to see both. I'm able to see what it is that I want to change, but I'm able to see the power and feel the power that lies within, that has always been there, but may have been dormant, unobserved, and I was unaware. Therefore, I was running for, experiences and achievements outside of me. And I think that reinventing ourselves now is really coming into terms with who I am and what I am meant for. Because it's not only about knowing myself, but it's also understanding my higher purpose. What is it that gives meaning to everything I do? And so by recognizing my core values, by understanding my original qualities, this is going to be the foundation of my decisions and my behavior, and will determine a direction in which I will move forward. So the step is coming inward and being very open as the observer, but then reflecting very deeply. So a very practical thing that we can do is start writing and become a reflective, maybe do your reflective journaling. And journaling will allow us to, capture whatever we are observing. And so it gives us this dynamic and space to be able, some people write things that they will never read again. Some people write and capture deep observations. And what are we observing now? We're observing the mind. We're observing the quality of my thinking. We're observing, what are the patterns that are holding me back? Because one thing, I love this, it's a metaphor to think that this, I am I'm thinking in Spanish now, I am the constant flow of meaning. Life is, and we are the living being. We don't have a life, we are it. So, and we are that constant flow. But if there's anything holding me back, that gives me the feeling that I'm not growing, that I'm not moving forward, or I'm stuck, then I need to look. What are the thoughts that create the feelings that make me feel inferior or superior, or that, the ego tricks? And what are the patterns that take me into emotions that make me feel unsafe, fearful, that hold me back? And the more we observe, the more we realize that anything negative about me is not original. It is not the DNA of the soul. It's not, if we look deep within, we will realize that what is original in me is peace. So what about anger? What about revenge? What about jealousy? What about, making others feel guilty or blaming or complaining? What about all these negative traits? If we become the observer, we know they're there, but they're not original. They are acquired. And when we move into this deep recognition that there's like two worlds within, and so there's the original and the acquired, then I can let go of this identity that I am aggressive, or I am, not capable, or I am insecure, or a weak personality. All these things have been learned behaviors. So I can let go. It's not something that will happen overnight. And I don't need to fight with that. So reinventing myself gives me this space in which I can, this laboratory in which I'm able to make this distinction. And if I want to let go something, if I let go, here's my cell phone. If I let it go, I put it here, you see that I've let it go. But how do I let go of, hurtful feelings that I've been carrying maybe for decades, of some past events that have created some trauma in the self? So it's not like letting go of cell phone. So in order to let go, I need to use my creative power, my creation, the power to create. So I need to work on my original qualities that will take me to a different experience. So if I now start working on an identity based on peace, that I can remain cool in situations that normally would provoke me, and then I can become more responsive rather than reactive, then I'm leaving behind those behaviors that made me feel unsafe, that made me feel possessive. And as we move forward in the experimenting, so part of reinventing is allowing newness and experimenting with new thoughts, new feelings, new ways of doing things. And it makes me, on one hand, I need the courage to do that. And it will come from my inner peace. But also it makes me humble, and it keeps me in this learning mode. And I think that the key element to reinventing the self is constant learning. So when we So this reflecting will keep me nourished and focused in direction of what it is that I want. And so, of course, the journey won't be just a smooth one, because life has all its ups and downs and twists and turns on the road. And it's okay to make mistakes. I'm still on track. As long as I learn from it and I'm able to apply what I learned, then I'm okay. So something that a good practice in terms of, to innovate, we also need to explore and maybe I would recommend a meditation course, certainly. That's what allowed my biggest reinvention to happen. But then going deeper into that practice also allowed so many times. I think I've been reborn so many times on this journey. I've been on this journey for 35 years now. And, new things will become old. So again, we need to, it's like starting again and again, but we can, and so I don't need to fear the process, because whatever we start will at some point not interest me anymore. So I'll do something different. So this nature of exploring and doing different things, meeting different people is part of this journey. And I think that a very important pillar of our growth is having good company. And good company, you would say, well, what to do with those who are not good if you think someone around you is not good? It's not that we're going to avoid people or, select this one yes and that no, especially when it comes to your family and you want to solve conflicts with your family. But I think good company has to do with your best thoughts, because the biggest or the dearest friend that we will ever have is the self. I can only be my best friend, and because only I can be my enemy. And that is something very, very deep to think about. Sometimes when we want things to change in life, we may have been very used to projecting and blaming others or expecting from situations, from the government, here in Argentina, everything depends on the value of the US dollar. So our inflation, by the way, is 57% annual. Can you think of that? I know Europe is so stable, maybe not so much now, but think of a 50% annual inflation. So every time you go to the supermarket, things are either double or half price, 50% more. So we can always expect that there's change. On one hand, change is always happening and change is good. But when your prices go up all the time, it's not so good, especially when the salaries don't go up at the same rate. But anyway, so people here would expect things, they're expecting the dollar to stabilize, so the peso stabilizes, and they're expecting the government to change and it's always expecting it from the outside. But when we come into this space of observation, we realize that it really depends on me. So it depends on the quality of thoughts that I think. And it depends, because what if now we think of something that think of someone whom you love, think of someone who is very dear to you. And now observe the feelings that have come to your mind, in your heart. And so what kind of feelings? You're not able to answer to me, but I'm sure they're good feelings. I'm sure they're very good feelings. Someone you love, so your heart feels good, appreciative, maybe thankful, loving. But if we think of someone who, presses all the buttons that trigger my reactions, or someone that, I feel provokes uncomfortable situations, if we now bring that one into my mind, then how do I feel? And maybe I feel uncomfortable. Maybe I feel tense. Maybe I feel angry. So if you're thinking about it, don't think about it anymore. What we want to do now is just realize, what connection is there between my thoughts and my feelings? Is there a connection? And so when we think good, we feel good. When we think of something negative, because there might be people that are provocative or whose behavior creates tension, but it's not that they're bad, actually. But depends on what I think about them, then how do I feel? So this brings us to this equation, which is so liberating to realize that how I feel depends on what I think. And this is where I get this key of self-control again. So nothing about my life is really in hands of anything out there or anyone. And when I don't feel good because things are happening, my observation can also bring me to the recognition that it's not that which is happening there that makes me feel like this, but it is what I think about that creates the feeling. So from whatever angle I look at it, I can come back to realizing that it all starts with my thought. What thoughts I create will create my reality, my destiny, the direction I go in. So regaining the space of reflection, and then regaining this observation of my mind, and then company. The company that what gives me my life experience is my own mind, what I'm thinking. But also, when it comes to good company, we can also think of those people who are inspiring. Maybe I have role models that, embody the qualities that I want. What is it that I want to experience? And it's about, maybe I want inner stability. Maybe I want to harmonize a relationship. Maybe I need self-respect. Maybe I need, to empower my self-esteem. And maybe I need courage. So whatever it is, we're not looking at reinventing work or even a health program, because even for that, I need qualities. So this is the reinventing that I'm talking about the level of, the vision that I hold of myself, and therefore how that will determine my decisions. And so good company could, maybe we need to talk to different people who think different. And sometimes we need to talk to people who think similar, where I will feel understood and I will feel their empathy. So sharing what we want, sharing what I need, sharing my learnings is definitely part of my journey out of a comfort zone, out and into whatever I'm creating for myself. And so my goals and objectives. So this is a very important aspect, but the main aspect of company, and this is what I would say I got the most help from, is the company that comes from the divine. So what I learned in terms of going back home into myself to become the observer took me further to understanding that there is another level of consciousness, and that I needed to reconnect to my source, to the divine source. And just as the sun is the source for the plants, for a flower to blossom, for a seed to sprout, in the same way, God's love, or the divine, however you understand it, his energy, when it touches the soul, it awakens that deep, dormant memory of who I truly am. So for me, that has been crucial on my journey to understand that I can do so much, but I need a lot of power to transform my negative habits. So allowing this flow of energy that comes from the connection, the relationship between either human soul and the divine or the supreme being, and allowing that flow that will free me from illusions of who I thought I was, but I'm not really, but also allowing the awakening to who I really am. And I think this is the biggest reinvention in our existence, to awaken deeply, deeply to who I really am. And then understanding what I'm here for will be a result of, who I am. And so moving forward in that will be only like giving steps towards goals. And maybe we give small steps, because sometimes we think, big change is too much, but maybe small steps. But I have a vision. I hold a vision, and I can aspire something unlimited in life, not just little achievements, but higher attainments. So maybe we can go into an experience. Maybe we can go into that feeling through a meditation. So I'd like to invite you to sit comfortably and relax your body and take a deep breath and bring your attention inward to your inner world, to a sacred space behind the eyes. This is where I, the spiritual being, the living force, this is where I am. And I can feel my presence. I can feel my own company when my attention is inward with myself. And I can see that I am the energy that is expressed through my eyes, through my face, through my every attitude, through my words, through my actions, and every interaction. Is the energy of the light of the living being that I am. And as I look deep within myself, I can feel the coolness, the stillness, the peace that lies within me. I am peace. And I become aware of the feeling of the peaceful being, unaffected, free from influence, free from worry, free from fear. I am peaceful. And I will take my attention deeper within. Silence, beyond the mundane and the temporary and the physical. Deep silence, beyond, where I just see myself as light, living, immersed in deep peace. The divine light, the source of peace. Receive the vibrations of unlimited peace coming from the source. Peace reaches into every corner of the soul. I experience vibrations of pure, unconditional love. This is the love that accepts me as I am, that nourishes the soul, that sets me free, that allows me to be who I truly am. This is pure love, God's love, spiritual love. And the feeling of joy, of being who I really am, soul that is loved unconditionally, accepted truly. Peaceful feeling. I can bring my attention down. As I perceive my breath and the movement of each breath, I allow this living energy of love, of peace, to spread throughout my entire body, giving life to every cell, reaching out all around me. The pure vibrations of love, of peace, of who I am, a free bird, a free thinker, and everything about my life depends on the choice that I make. Now, Om Shanti, and Om means I am, and Shanti means peace. So thank you very much, and Om Shanti.
Thank you very much, Moira, for this experience. When we experience our true self and this inner calmness and peace, then it's much easier to look at the things I still want to change. No, I have to change. And I have a question for you. And my question is, I heard you speaking about early morning meditation and that you like to meditate very early in the morning. Can you tell us about the benefit of this, to meditate when all the world is sleeping?
Yeah, it's very precious time, like just as much as when we're either up very late and see the sunrise or up very early in the morning. So that is a very unique time of the day, because if we have been sleeping and we get up early, there is a silence all around us, maybe because your family is still resting, maybe because it's early enough and everybody's at home, but also because your body is very still. And so we are able to become more aware of my inner world. But early morning meditation is like the foundation. It will create the foundation of whatever our day is going to be like. So this is a time to start nourishing the self. And it is a time, if we get up early enough, not at the time you need to have your breakfast, shower, and off you go, or help others in the house, but if we get up early enough to give ourselves some space, to be able to sit very silently. The first need, if you were to take a bit, if you're waking up a child and you want to feed it immediately, he's not interested. If you want him to play, he's not interested. What does he need first? If you take him in your arms and you embrace him, he will settle into that love and affection. Then he will have his breakfast. Then he'll be ready to play. Same way, for us, our basic need is we need to feel loved. So in the early morning meditation is a chance to sit in very, contemplative silence. And so what would we do? We would practice coming within, observing the self, observing my own quality of peace, to realize every day, recognize I am a peaceful, I am a loving soul every day. And then also connecting to the source and allowing the coolness of his vibrations, the warmth of his love to really shower the soul and empower the heart. And then we'll start thinking, because our mind is there meant to be thinking. So there are three moments in this meditation that you can practice. On one hand is taking power, nourishing the soul. But also then, I like to demystify the idea of meditation as being something that I need to kind of be very still and stop thinking. It has to be so relevant to my life, to my needs, to whatever I need to understand, whatever I need to create. So meditation is also conversation. And on one hand, it is conversation with the self, but it is also conversation with the Supreme. And so in this meditation in the morning, once we have been for a while just absorbing in silence this power, and then naturally, like with a child, you would keep him quietly against your, lovingly, and then you would start talking. So in this way, we can also start this conversation, and in which we can open our hearts. Is there anything that I need to change? Is there any help that I need? Is there anything that I need to understand? So meditation is relationship. It's this relationship between I, the soul, the child, and the Supreme Father, the Supreme Being, my source. And so there's this relationship and this conversation. And the third aspect of this meditation, I like to think of meditation as a process of going inward, upward, and outward. And so it is about sharing those vibrations with the world. And when we consciously want to, we have good wishes for people, we want things to be okay, we're sharing our vibrations of peace, not only to the, people in your home, but people in the world, because vibrations are unlimited, but also with nature. So it's like we become a donor, someone who shares. And the more we share, the vibrations that we feel when we meditate, the more they will increase too. So I think early morning meditation is a must for me, definitely, but it could be a very beautiful way to start your day.
Thank you for your explanation. There is another question, and the question is, what do if we, in the process of reinventing, come to an inner state of emptiness and total insecurity? How to overcome that practically?
Well, I think that sometimes it's not easy. And I think that finding someone to talk to about this and sharing your feelings and maybe, asking for advice good company, as I was saying, could be the company of friends. It could be the company of a therapist, depending if you have like, it could be a panic attack. It could be different forms of insecurity. So I think that taking help, but also, well, I would suggest learning how to meditate, because this would bring you in contact with 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 the power that lies within. Sometimes we only look at our negativity, we only remember our mistakes, and so our vision has become, it's like an injury in the soul, that I don't see good things about me, and I don't have much hope. So I feel insecure and I'm afraid to start new things. So this is why company of someone who does love you, who does appreciate you, can be a mirror of your own good qualities. And then we also have to take, a step of courage, because of course, moving out of a comfort zone is an effort. We have to define, okay, what is it that I want? And I need to ask myself, if I don't feel comfortable, or if I feel unsafe, what is it that I want? I want to be, I want to be, I want to be self-confident. I want to move on. I want to grow. So I need to learn about that, and start researching and do something that you really are interested in. Give time and energy to something that you are interested in. Sometimes we do so many things out of inertia just because we have always done it, but we don't need to continue to do that anymore. And, sometimes trying to do something new might make you feel uncomfortable, because we haven't done it before. We don't know much about it, but it doesn't matter. Exposing ourselves to the discomfort of newness is part of the learning curve. So I think that, and you know what? God knows that we need deep, deep help. So if we sit in silent meditation, or in a reflective introspection, and we share this with him, he will help us. We in the Brahma Kumaris have a beautiful slogan that says like this: one step of courage of the children will bring the fruit of 1,000 steps from the Father. And, it's like, imagine if your little child had made a mistake at school, and he feels very ashamed, or very, he feels in loss, but he, with some courage, comes and tells you the way he feels. And that's just one step. It doesn't mean he's repaired or, moved out of that. It's just the step of telling you how he feels. What would you not do for him? I mean, you would go out of your way to make him feel good about himself, no? So there would be many steps from the parent. So this applies spiritually. When we have a beautiful practice in the Brahma Kumaris that I would like to share with you. This is writing letters to the divine. And when we write what we feel, when we write, any difficulty that we have, we put it out there. In a way, we're putting it out. So we strongly believe that we are heard. We're not only heard, but we are seen. But more than that, because it's a relationship, when we write a letter, we'll get responses. And it won't come through the mail. It will probably come through new thoughts in your mind. It will come through new feelings in your heart. It might come through some signal that you will identify, wow, didn't expect this, and it's right there. So I have, many times felt unsafe and flat. And, how to give myself another blank page. I write to God, and I always get an answer.
Thank you. That's a nice method, not to write a letter to God and there is coming an answer. And we have other questions. Nina wants to know, can we create security in any situation which comes from the outside?
Well, we're so used to thinking that safety is all about, having been in a safe environment, or being in a, how many locks you have on the house. Once we rented an apartment for Brahma Kumaris in Buenos Aires, and the back door of the apartment had 7 different locks on the door. And I was thinking, so the person showing me the place said, this is very safe place because you have all these locks. And I thought, well, if someone was to come in, they wouldn't bother with the 7 locks. They'll just wait for me and tell me, let me in, and that's it. So those locks are no guarantee. I want to share with you a little story about safety. In Brazil, in a city called Belo Horizonte, there was a young girl. She was 15. She came from a very simple background, and she would come every morning to our class, meditation class, before going to school. But in order to do that, she had to leave a very unsafe neighborhood. And so she was walking in her school uniform and her backpack, and she knew that she was alone on the street, going to take a bus to come to the meditation center. And so suddenly she felt, and Brazil, well, I don't know if you know, but Brazil is known to be a pretty violent country. It's really unsafe in the streets, especially at night. And so at one point, she feels a presence. She now knows she's no longer alone. And she feels that presence or that person is coming closer to her, closer and closer enough to a point that man jumped in front of her and yelled at her, "Are you not afraid?" And she said, she had a shawl on her head like this, because it was fresh. So she said to him, "When I was alive, I was afraid." Can you imagine? The guy thought he had met a ghost. So he ran away. And so she came to the center and told the story. And this was such a funny story, because at the time in which you are the most unsafe, what will protect you is the right thought. It's not exactly the circumstance. And of course, if I ask you, her name was Tanya. If I ask you, did Tanya think about what she was going to say? No, of course she didn't have, it was no time for reflection. She just said something very intuitive. But what she said when she came to the center is, I was in meditation. I was connected. And this is where her safety and protection came from, because she was remembering. Meditation, you can call it remembrance of who I am, remembrance of who I belong to, And so she felt that those words that came out of her mouth were, just the protection of being connected, because if she had thought for 1 second what she was going to say, she would probably not say it, because it was too ridiculous to say, when I was alive, I was afraid. So he must have thought that he was in front of a living dead or something like this, but it saved her. So I think that we have to trust that if we train our mind to have very positive thoughts, we have no control over situations. But if we can trust that we can create the best thoughts, we will know what to do, even in face of danger.
Thank you. And there is another interesting question: how to find a balance between being introverted to build strength inside and going outside to connect with others joyfully. When we are connected with others, it normally pulls us away from ourselves.
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I am not a very introverted person. One of my teachers, she's called Sister Mohini. She's actually one of our directors for the world now, from Brahma Kumaris. And she always used to tell me, Moira, you have to be introverted. And she kept, every time she met me, she said, you have to be introverted. And I have always been a very sociable person and very communicative and very outgoing and so on. And I would tell her, Mohini, but when am I going to become introverted? And she said, it will happen. It will happen. And she always gave me the same answer. And with time, I realized that, if I'm extroverted and I don't go inward, my energy drains away and eventually is depleted, because becoming introverted is becoming a conscious observer and connecting with my inner strength. And becoming the observer allows me to go into deep thinking, allows me to be silent enough to perceive truth. Truth not only lying within me, but the truth of a situation, of a relationship, what is going on. We do need this space. We need a perspective to be able to understand things. And that will only come from introversion. And of course, we need to play. It's like, imagine we are an actor on this world stage, and we're all playing, each one is playing a different part. So we have to come into the scenes and we have to perform and we have to be active, but we need to come back to ourselves again and again. Otherwise, we get lost out there. We get lost, and things, if we are exposed out of extrovertedness to everything, we become so influenced, and then we're no longer in control of myself. So this balance really keeps us, it keeps us connected. It keeps us safe, but also it keeps us strong. And we have to express. Life is the constant expression of the self, but we now need to choose what it is that I want to express and how. And that will only come, that choice will only come when I can see the difference from, high level of thinking, or being mundane, or being superficial, or being, So I think it's an amazing balance. I've done a lot of effort to be able to come back to this. And you know what? Something that has helped me has been to be in the company of quiet or more silent people. It reminds me that there is this choice that I can do. Go within. And if we keep the aim, we will get the help.
Thank you so much, Moira. I think that was the last question, and we can just end with some moments of silence. And the ones who like to open the camera so we can connect, and I mean, we are connecting with Moira to Argentina, and it's all over the globe, so we are connecting with each other. Would be very nice. Thank you very much, Moira, for your insight, for your sharing, for your honesty, authenticity, and and see you soon again. Om Shanti.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Ihr könnt aufmachen.
Thank you so much, Moira.
Thanks, Matthias.
Thanks everyone for participating.
Thank you all.
Next time, Moira, we would like to have you here in person.
Thank you. Love to come. Love to
We would
come.
love to have that after pandemic.
Yeah, let's see. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Om Shanti. Bye-bye.